Tonight. American politics has entered into a new phase this week, one that is quite familiar. The American people have again been reminded just how atrocious most of our elected leaders truly are, and it didn't take long. America's moderate voters, the suburb people who love the policy but couldn't take Trump's behavior, are now seeing the alternative, a collection of career politicians and D.C. insiders incapable of doing the real work of running this country. People who have survived decades in Washington with no discernible accomplishments, running this country into the ground in record time. 10 days before the 20th anniversary of 9/11, the Taliban is celebrating yet again. This time, the withdrawal of American forces as they retake Afghanistan and welcome their old buddies Al-Qaeda back to their former home. The Taliban throwing a military parade. Check it out. Looks like fun, right? Our American tanks, our trucks, our Black Hawk helicopters. Neanderthals who can't even spell their own names. Fanatics who militantly believe in the most extreme, idiotic perversion of religion on the planet, riding around in equipment they couldn't create themselves in 1,000 lifetimes. It's enraging to see, it really is. And that rage is being felt nationwide as Biden's approval rating drops to a new and remarkable low. According to Rasmussen, more Americans now think the president should resign from office than stay in office. The new poll released today indicates 52% of American voters say Biden should resign. And remember, these are the guys that got it so right in 2016 while all the other pollsters were wrong. If Biden does not resign, and there is no identification he will, because there's rarely accountability in Washington, an even larger majority of likely U.S. voters in the poll, 60%, agreed with what Senator Lindsey Graham called for first on this show last week: impeachment. And while it all sounds great, impeaching, getting even maybe, today Mitch McConnell sobered everybody up.
Well, look, if the president's not going to be removed from office, if the Democratic House, narrowly Democratic Senate, that's not going to happen.
Biden recently called the evacuation of Kabul, an extraordinary success after he had promised no Americans would be left behind. On this story, the media has abandoned its prior role as propaganda arm for the Democrat Party. The media is trying to win back the nation's respect by actually holding this administration accountable for its latest miserable screw-up. They've ignored the others. But the incompetents that surround Biden have made it clear. They will not admit fault. They will not apologize. They certainly won't resign. Here's General Milley today, a man who was once just a figurehead at State of the Union speeches for years, is now a mainstream name for all the wrong reasons.
This is tough stuff. War is hard. It's vicious. It's brutal. It's unforgiving. And yes, we all have pain and anger.
It's tough stuff. It's brutal. It's hard. Well, you know, it's a lot easier when you don't make massive mistakes. Think about it this way. All we had to do was leave Afghanistan, a nation we had full control of. Nothing about this should have been this difficult. We hadn't had a soldier killed in a year and a half. We didn't have to march into Beijing and free the Chinese from oppression or something like that. You had to leave Afghanistan while you had control of Afghanistan. That's all. And the problems for the people of this war-torn terrorist playground run by lunatics are just beginning. The New York Times reporting, even as the Taliban has their parade with our choppers and vehicles, there is a crisis looming. Quote, with the final U.S. troops gone, triumphant scenes were clouded by the prospect of famine and financial collapse. Afghanistan is deeply impoverished, with a third of the citizens struggling to survive in the face of what the United Nations calls crisis levels of food insecurity. The country could functionally be without food within a month, they say. Basic services like electricity also under threat. You're probably thinking it's a good thing we took all those faithful Afghans who helped us fight the Taliban out of there right now. Think again. NBC reporting only a small portion of the 120,000 people we evacuated are actually the Afghans who supported our troops. It can't get any worse than this. So who exactly did we take out then? Well, on all those flights we watched for the past week or 10 days, it appears we just took out anybody that showed up at the airport. Not interpreters who fought for our freedom, just people who would love to live here instead of in Afghanistan, which frankly is a lot of people. Between Afghanistan and the southern border, the Biden administration is on a mission to adopt the world, it would seem, and you are going to pay for it. For those we haven't yet brought to the United States, including the vast majority of the people who actually deserve to be on a flight here, The Taliban is calling for international engagement to save the country, saying, quote, "I invite you all to come and invest in Afghanistan. Your investments will be in good hands. The country will be stable and safe." I think I'm going to build a hotel there. It's a hell of an idea. Even funnier than that comment, the people in charge are actually prone to trust those words. Just wait until the Taliban leaders are waltzing into the UN next fall in New York City. It's going to be priceless to see. The State Department is hoping for diplomatic talks with the Taliban. Here's General Milley today saying that we could be working with the Taliban against ISIS.
Any possibility of coordination against ISIS-K with them, do you think?
It's possible.
Possible. Our good friends, the Taliban. I guess if they're going to be using all of our weapons, they can kill some of our enemies while they're slaughtering our Afghan interpreters. We'll get the 2 for 1. Also today, the Biden administration erased Afghan weapons reports from federal websites. Isn't that curious? From Forbes, according to an admission obtained from the State Department, Biden officials recently directed federal agencies to scrub their websites of official reports detailing the $83 billion in military equipment and training provided to the Afghan security forces since 2001. Now, these scrubbed audits and reports included detailed accounting of what the U.S. had provided to Afghan forces, like the number of Black Hawk helicopters, the night vision devices, the armored vehicles, all the guns, and all the good stuff they got. So why would the Biden administration want to scrub all of that from the record books? Well, the State Department justified the move as a way to protect our Afghan allies. A spokesperson saying the State Department advised other federal agencies to review their web properties for content that highlights cooperation, participation between an Afghan citizen and the USG or a USG partner, and remove it from public view if it poses a security risk. Well, maybe. But where was that concern when they provided actual lists of Afghan nationals, their names, their biometric data to the Taliban in their failure to clear them for evacuation? You know, the kill list, they weren't concerned about it then. It's pretty priceless. Biden himself continues to ignore any further questions on Afghanistan from the media, like he did today after meeting with the Ukrainian president. Incredible timing for this particular meeting. 2 years ago, the Democrats, of course, tried to destroy Trump again with impeachment for asking that man, Zelensky, to investigate Hunter Biden over his obviously corrupt deal with a Ukrainian energy company, something he knew nothing about. It was so corrupt, it was embarrassing. And they impeached him for asking about it and asking for an investigation, which is probably what anybody would ask for when something is so obviously corrupt. Well, now everything's flipped, right? Just yesterday, Reuters released a leaked phone call between Biden and the president of Afghanistan from back on July 23rd. This is back when the Taliban was making moves, but they hadn't had Kabul yet. Biden pressured Ashraf Ghani to create the perception that the Taliban was not winning and not making a comeback. At the same time, Biden was telling Americans the Afghan government was going to hold on. He was telling their president, please lie about the situation so that I look like I'm saying the truth. Those lies actually cost lives, cost a lot of lives, to be honest. But of course, Democrats suddenly don't care about that, and neither does Jen Psaki, a liberal who was obsessed with impeaching Trump 2 years ago on the subject, said this today.
I'm not going to go into details of a private conversation, but what we saw over the course of the last few months is a collapse in leadership. And that was happening even before Ghani left the country.
So now we're not going into details of a private conversation. Okay, just so you know, her party impeached the last president over the details of a private conversation.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.